Okay, well, I think it's time we finally move into the meat and potatoes here of the top 5 games that came out this year. Why don't you start us out with your number 5? We'll see if any of these match up with each other's. I doubt they will, but let's go on.
Dave the Diver. It was such a solid game. Like I'm such a Stardew Valley boy. Where like I just like these good little chill games for me to fall back on. And you just get in these modes where you just need something.
You mean you're a woman?
Relaxing.
That's what you're getting at? You're a woman?
Yeah, you know.
You like your cozy farm sims?
Sometimes I want to just be on my cozy little farm.
Hey, I got a cozy sim in my top 5. Don't worry.
It's just nice and cozy. I just loved it. It's not the game I would call like the best. Like it's not like what's gave me the most fun or anything, but just it was there when I needed it to be, and it was fun for the entire section. It's not everyone's cup of tea. I get that. But it was just such a cozy little fallback, and I have to always have a cozy game to fall back on. I put like 500 hours into Stardew Valley or something goofy like that. So, you know.
I hate to say this because I think it's still in my top 5 here, but we're gonna get into this discussion right quick. Number 5 for me, out of all the games I played, has to be Baldurs Gate 3.
Tell me, why have you come here? We must all cure ourselves of the entire cult of the Absolute.
I'll get what I want to say out of it really quick. It's great to see a CRPG with a AAA budget. That shit is cool. Generally, as we both know, not like CRPGs, a lot of the times they're not even fully voiced. Definitely not big in the animations department, but being able to like zoom in and see your characters talking, all of that stuff, I really liked it. It does use the world to the best of its ability. It does understand the Forgotten Realms, which is nice.
It is also done by Larian Studios, so you know it was going to be pretty well tasteful. And
right.
And that is both a good and bad thing that Larian Studios did.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I'm about to get into. There's enough praises on the internet of this game and enough circle jerking over Baldur's Gate that I don't think we really even need to get into why it's good. So I actually think, despite being in my top 5, I'm going to tell you what I didn't like. The story is very forgettable. Here's the 3 big bads, go kill them. And I don't know, I might get really hated for this one, but I do not like the companions. I like Shadowheart and I like Gale, but the problem is, in which every like normie and dork who's never played a CRPG talks about, is like the amount of sex in the game. And I know you've played D&D at a tabletop. You know I've played D&D at a tabletop. Those are the worst people at the table.
Tonight on a tabletop.
Right. I don't like, and I'm not like some Puritan, I don't care about sex in video games, but there was something about that just felt, it reminded me of those like problem characters who are just like, they want to fuck everything, and I don't know, I just couldn't vibe with them too well. I
will say that there was a problem with the like system upon coming out, whether or not you knew it. For some reason, like there was supposed to be a threshold of where they did and didn't want to have sex with you, or did not want to flirt with you.
Right.
But for some reason, it was 1/5 the requirement. So essentially, your base neutral was enough for basically everyone to get it in your pants. You do one thing they like, they're like, oh, he donated a copper to a homeless person. I need to get in his pants. So it was
panties like, off now.
And so I will say that detracted. I will find that honestly the sex detracted a little bit, because when I'm just like minding my business, and then all of a sudden Gale is just like, I got something important to tell you, and he's like, take me now, and I'm like, bro,
that was also like out of
where
nowhere.
Is this coming from? Like no romance has been done. Like the most I've done is like not let you die and giving you a few magical items, and you're like, I need to have sex with you right now.
I got to thinking about
when you turn them down,
dude. They're gonna kill themselves. Like Will, he's like dancing around. He's like, "Do you want to dance?" I'm like, "Bro." And this is also another hit against me. I'll be real. I do not like 5e. I do not like 5e.
No, and so
all.
that was gonna be one of my gripes, and one of the things I felt was a very. Like, it makes sense to do it in video game format, because you just cannot have the freeform nature of D&D, which makes it great. But 5e in itself is such a limited system. Like, in the old ones, you could really choose how you wanted to build your character. You could specialize in a way that made you the best at what you do. But in 5e, there is very much a right and wrong thing to do, and that's what I think I dislike about it, is either you build your character this way, or you're missing out. Like you're just not as good as you could be.
Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
And I take such an issue with that, because Pathfinder, it's like, I felt like I could make a viable character almost no matter what. Yeah. Did I remake basically Natsu as a like melee warlock? I did. Or melee sorcerer? I did do that. But I could.
But that's
also
the fun
made a warrior
part.
whose whole thing is he liked tripping people. So he was an expert at tripping. I made a monk that basically just ran around the battlefield constantly and just triggered everyone's attack of opportunity and never got hit. Right. I did that. Like, you could, but now it's just you build the character one way. Basically, the only reason to take something less optimal is for flair. And, you know, that's fine. Maybe it's much more of a flair game and you don't have to worry as much about that. It makes it a lot more user-friendly, but you lose something whenever you go and you make it for everybody.
Well, we need to sit down. I don't know, maybe we should make a video about this. It's not really what our channel's about, but something I did want to talk about with you just as a whole is, first off, like 5e is the gold standard, which is awful. And the fact that like D&D as in a whole, ever since like Stranger Things, which I'm not trying to like gatekeep or anything like that, and it's fine.
I'm gatekeeping the shit out of it. If you don't write a 5-page backstory, you're dead to me.
It feels like 5e and D&D as a whole, and even to an extent Baldurs Gate 3, like it's not made for me, right? It's made for this new demographic of like Stranger Things watching, 5e playing, like they don't know that there's other types of systems out there, people who've never played a CRPG. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is a good CRPG, but it's like entry-level CRPG at best. I mean, I would way rather suggest like Wasteland 3 or Wrath of the Righteous, Pathfinder, or Underrail as an example of like, if you want to get nitty-gritty CRPGs, but it's just like Baldur's Gate was a product for the masses, which is not necessarily a bad thing. And again, it's cool and it's fine. It's a good game, but the amount of like 10/10 masterpiece reviews for it versus everything else is a little overblown and honestly kind of annoying to me, because it's like,
I'm not going to get into all my gripes about it, but I mean, that was one of the things is like Larian Studios, Divinity Sin Original 2, fantastic.
Oh God,
loved
yes.
it, 10 out of 10. The characters were great, and that's one of the things is when you said it earlier, the characters for the most part are just forgettable. Like that, none of them made any kind of impact. Games that I've loved the most, Dragon Age Origins, pretty much every character in that felt special. Just
right.
Everybody was someone that you wanted to befriend and you wanted to keep. Mass Effect.
I was about to say Mass Effect. Yeah.
Mass Effect was just a beautiful masterpiece that focused on the characters. Like, it's just, it's so character focused, and the ones that don't have memorable characters, they feel less important to me because I'm not attached to anybody. Like, I never. Like, the only reason I talked to anybody besides, like, the couple of people I cared about, Karlach, I loved. I liked Will. Or no, not Will. I liked Gale. And I liked Shadowheart. Okay. I liked them all okay. The ability for this game to build is fantastic.
Yep.
But that's not what we're judging it on. We're judging on it as a game.
What it is now.
As a standalone. And that's kind of one of my big gripes with it. It's just too generic. Is part of it.
It's very generic. Yes.
It's very generic, and so you knew exactly. And I said this, and someone said, "Oh, shut up!" It was like you knew what you were getting. Like there was no question. I knew exactly what to expect when I heard Larian Studios was making it. I knew exactly what to expect. I knew how the systems were going to work. Just a question of what kinds of spells and what kind of stuff they did. But I knew 80% of what I was getting myself into before I just heard Baldur's Gate 3, Larian Studios. Like I already know like 80% of the game. Like I
original Sim 3, but with the 5e, the Forgotten Realms.
It's like I knew what to expect, and then I also knew what to expect in the sense of like tactician difficulty. Like I wanted to play the game hard, but what it turns into is their saves are just better than yours. If you cast CC on the most common forgettable mob, and it's a high level spell, there's like and you have a maxed out character and you've min-maxed everything, there's like a 30% chance hold person works. That's it. And if you're using against someone important, it's like a 12%. But whenever they want to use hold person on you, like 90% chance. And like when you start failing the saves, they just keep failing. So it's like the difficulty isn't what it should be. It's not you have to be more tactical. It's you just have to get in.
Yeah,
and like
that's
cheese fights, because you get in there, you deal the maximum damage as fast as you can, because if the important characters get any spells off,
you're done.
You will lose.
Yeah, that's
it's
what
just
it
didn't feel right. So like my strategy always became sneak in, get Karlach where I needed to.
Yes,
bash
exactly.
Something 8 times, and then you action surged and you bash them 3 more, and then you generally murdered 1 to 2 people, and then you use your bonus action to smack someone else.
Right.
It's like, you get like 7 attacks off, so you've executed a few of the key components. But or you have someone who just pushes people off ledges, or you just have like.
Well, that's
like,
Gale with Thunderwave. It's just like,
yeah,
is there
exactly.
somewhere I can? And I get that. That's fun for the first few times you do it, but like having me like have to do that in combat, it's like I don't feel smart. I feel like, oh, sweet, a sweet setup where I can toss these people off the ledge. Like that one part with the I forget their names. The blue dwarves. They're at the forge. Oh, you mean
the gnomes, the deep gnomes?
Yeah, deep gnomes. That's what they are. You've got to like, they're right there next to that lava pit. Like the game, there's like 50 of them. So it's like, by the way, you need to shove most of these into the lava. Don't try to like fight them normally or you lose. And I was just like, I don't know. It felt more like, am I using my brain or is the game just trying to make me feel smart? Act 1 is the best act.
Yeah.
Act
and that's also
2,
classic Larian Studios.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Either way, we should probably move on, or we'll be here all day on both.
Maybe
please.
At some point we can release a D&D like talk sesh, because like I've got a lot of opinions on it. I'm sure a lot of people.
We need to. We'll like do Baldur's Gate 3 in-depth review. What works, what doesn't work, and then maybe we can talk about like introduce other people to like TTRPG systems as a whole. I guess we should move on to our number 4. Why don't
You're gonna have to cut so much of that, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine.
Number 4 overall, I mean, probably just has to be the Dwarves game, because I don't know, like it's
called Return to Moria.
Return to Moria, return into the good old, like, it's just such a good game. Like,
yeah,
I've said everything I want to say on it already without going into spoiler territory, but it's just such a good mixture of like minor cozy along with actual like combat and stuff going on. So it's just such a good game. Like I'm gonna keep enjoying it. I like it. It's gonna keep going.
Okay, my number 4 is Aliens Dark Descent.
Take a look, but stay sharp. Those creatures, they know we're here.
More are coming!
Shut that door! Shut that door!
It is, yes, it is. I think you would like it, by the way. It's basically XCOM in the Aliens universe. It's real-time combat. Obviously, you can pause it, but it's the same vibe. Drop in, there's a doom counter. It's really, really good. Squads of 4 to 6 guys drop in, do some missions. It's very intense while it still remains like scary. The devs have listened to all the feedback. It's a smaller studio. It's more, I don't think it's independent, but it's like a pretty like B-list studio. You know, it's not a Larian or a Bethesda or anything. Mm-hmm. People were like, hey, on a new playthrough, I want to skip the prologue and I want these options and like more sandboxy options. And they listened. It's great. I spent a lot of time in it, and it was all really, really thoroughly enjoyable. So that is my number 4. Aliens Dark Descent. Very much, not to be confused with Amnesia, by the way, which we were talking about earlier. Not Amnesia Dark Descent, Aliens Dark Descent. Same ending of the title, but excellent game. Very much recommended. Zach, what is your number 3?
I'm torn, because I feel like Marauders has got to be on that list. We played it so much, we keep coming back to it. Like, it is just a solid, fun experience, and you just pick up anywhere and keep it going there. And I think that's what makes the game important to me, is just you don't have to keep with it. There's no meta, there's no battle pass.
Yeah, we just hop in and play.
There, you shoot some people, you take some loot, you get out. Like, it's just such a solid, easy, repeatable, replayable content. Get the new weapons, lose the weapons, explore the new systems, explore space stuff, do the new maps. There's just always something to do and come back to.
Speaking of devs listening to things we want implemented, like they listen so much. Again, as we said from day one, That game has just amazing bones to it. You're right. I know it didn't come out this year, but I mean, it was late enough last year that we didn't really like...
And there's always new maps coming out, so it's always, and they're updating the system. So I mean, it feels like it's almost like a new game from where it was. So I have trouble calling it as an old game because if you compared it to when it first came out,
oh god,
it wasn't what it is. So it feels like it's a new.
It's radically different this year.
It's so
than
radically
it was.
different. It's a new game, like
for sure
at its heart.
Okay, well, my number 3 is My Time at Sandrock, my cozy little female game.
Greetings, Builder, and a warm welcome to Sandrock. We built this community on dust and metal and turned it into our own little slice of heaven.
I played Portia, which was the last one, which was before like the big cozy simulator thing like explodes. Now like everything's a cozy farming sim. So this one's like one of those.
Too many of them.
Yeah, this one's good. I like it because you're, instead of being like a farmer, you're helping build a town in the middle of a desert. The characters are really, really great. It's great to see like your friendships grow with them. It's great to see the town grow. Every mission feels like you're making an impact on people's lives and the way the game is being played, and it unlocks like just new fun stuff to do. It's great to take like the townspeople on a date. It's very much it's a cozy sim. However, it's great. I will say, Zach, the grinding from Portia is way down. That one felt way better. This new one feels way better to play than Portia does. It's definitely not so grindy, but it's great. It's nice to just turn your brain off and hack away at some things and build up a town. It still has that early game where you have low stamina, but it gets better quicker than it did in Portia. The whole game feels better this time around. I spent total around 80 hours beating it, and I played it basically every day, and it was good. I never really got bogged down or felt like it dragged in certain areas. Like it was always just a fun game to play. So that's my number 3, My Time at Sandrock. Highly recommend it. Zach, number 2.
You're gonna probably be a little surprised by this, but GTFO.
I don't think GTFO came out this year, but we did play it this year. So yeah.
Then if we're sticking with games this year, Age of Wonders 4.
Oh, okay. Well, either way, we'll give you 2 number 2s. Zach's a GTFO boy.
It's just we didn't mention GTFO, and it deserves a shout out. Fantastic.
It does.
Age of Wonders 4, I enjoy. I feel like I need to play it way more than we do, but it's one of those. It's like a Civ style game, more close to like Civ 5 and Civ 4 than Civ 6, because I don't like Civ 6. I looked at it, I tried to like hype myself up in the idea of it, but I never got behind it, never liked it. It's got a very Civ build, like, you know, you're in the tiled world, you're doing stuff, there's a lot of resource management, there's a lot of different races, they all have their own benefits, you can customize, there's in-map battles, so it's like a turn-based XCOM in-map battles, or you can auto it, which is what you do most of the time, but on the important ones you take control, you do the fights. Like every characters play a little differently, there's different good units, there's different paths to choose from, there's war paths, there's magic paths, there's resource paths, like, and you don't have to just do one, you do several of them. So like the ability to run a new style every single game is fantastic, but it's just such a good game. It's got massive replayability, you play with your friends, you play alone, great game. I'm not sure it's got the ability to be this like 10 out of 10 long lasting one, but it's just such a good game. Every time I dive into it, I have such a good time. It's always a different experience. It's been such a good little side piece that I can just dive into and have fun with. And then the ability to play with your friends and everybody do something different. It's just nice. It's just nice.
All right, my number 2, I have to go with a game called Wartales. It's XCOM, but it's medieval, so it's not a big surprise that it's up there for me. Super addicting. You have like a little mercenary company of like 4 guys, and it starts to grow up. It's kind of like Mount and Blade, but way more personal, I guess, because like you get to know your army's guys and all this stuff. It's just, it's very good. The patches have been great. The updates have been great. There's actually a new DLC coming out that lets you be a pirate in it. So it's just like
that's kind of fat.
It's low fantasy. There's no like magic or anything. It's very much like you go to a certain region and there's like 2 warring parties. Who are you going to side with? So there's like multiple endings and stuff like that. Bunch of replayability to it. The combat is very, very fun. It also has these, you know, in like XCOM, when you send your ranger over to like stab somebody with a sword, it does like a really sweet animation. You're like, oh hell yeah.
And you get to see the fucking, it's great. I love it.
Well, Wartales does that for basically every kill with any weapon. So like guys with like giant axes will like knock them down on their knees and chop their heads off. It's just all the time. It's really good. It feels really satisfying to play. It's by the same people who make Northgard. Have you ever heard of Northgard?
Oh yeah, I played Northgard, yeah.
And it's nothing like Northgard at all. It's not at all like that. It is way more of a like, you move around on the map to different towns and then you enter into like XCOM style combat. Very, very, very good. All right, Zach, it's time to make the choice of the number 1.
Yeah, this one was easy, honestly.
Okay, let's hear it.
Valheim.
Valheim?
It's just, it's I don't know. I feel like it's a game for everybody. If you want to be super combat heavy, you can. If you want to be cozy, you can. It's such a versatile game. It's always getting better. You know, it's just, it's, you know, I don't know. It just feels like such a for everyone game, and I feel like that's important in being a number 1 game. Like Baldur's Gate is great. It's for everybody, but kind of in the worst way. I'm not super, you know, I liked it. I put a lot of hours into it. I played through it. I've got, you know, a couple different campaigns where, you know, it's different groups of people, but it never ended up being
If you were limited to a game that came out this year, would Baldur's Gate 3 probably be number 1?
Yeah.
Well, my number 1 is going to piss off probably a lot of people, considering I put Baldur's Gate 3 in number 5, but a game the internet has really loved to hate, but I thoroughly enjoyed, was the new Bethesda game Starfield.
They say, the wonder is, not that the field of stars is so vast, but that we have measured it.
It was great. I am a Bethesda fanboy, as I think most people are anyway, and there are a few things that it doesn't do great. I played through the game and was like really pleased with it. I do have gripes. To be entirely fair, I do have gripes. Like, the exploration part is what suffers the most. Skyrim was fine when it came out, and I would say Skyrim was better than Starfield when it came out. However, we all remember Skyrim with mods today. We remember Fallout 4 with mods and DLC today. So like, when you're judging Starfield, I don't know. It's just, and there again, my complaints with Starfield, exploration isn't the greatest.
What was that one game? And see, that's the thing, is I felt like the part of my gripe with it is Starfield already existed. And what was the other game? But it also had the same issue. It came out, promised all this exploration. And
No Man's Sky.
No Man's Sky. I feel like Starfield already exists in No Man's Sky. Starfield is just more of the same.
Well,
and I don't know what makes it special versus that, because it still suffers from the same thing that every exploration thing suffers from, which is there's a lot of stuff, but it's a lot of nothing.
Well, the game Starfield would be better if it had less star systems. If it just focused on like a handful of systems, it would be much better, because the problem with it is there's some excellent design encounters throughout the game, but finding them is hard. You have to just like intentionally roam around randomly to find them, which I get it. They're supposed to be these random events, and they're really, really good, like what we remember from Bethesda. But the problem is there's a difference. Bethesda does do it better when it's like, hey, when you walk from Whiterun to Windhelm, you're going to encounter all this stuff. Well, when it's in space, like space games, I think are harder to get right. And Bethesda did fail in that regard, but there are so many really fun gameplay elements in there, like customizing the ship, getting all your companions on the ship, setting off to places unknown, and like landing on a strange planet that has this like really cool side quest on it is still a thing. It's just that it doesn't feel like Skyrim. And I don't know, like there's something about it that I see the complaints about it, and I honestly feel like a lot of people didn't even play it and they complain about it, which is fine. I mean, you can have opinions on games that you didn't play, but I sunk like 200 hours into it for 2 weeks straight, basically. I just really enjoyed it. I don't know what maybe I'm just retarded. I don't know if that's my problem, if I just don't care about this stuff, but I was like pretty critical of Baldur's Gate 3. And again, Starfield is not perfect. It is definitely not. However, a new Bethesda game with a new like IP, I think is something I didn't want another Fallout. And I mean, I do want another Elder Scrolls, but I hadn't gotten anything from Bethesda in years. And another big point to it, I love the aesthetic of Starfield. I don't, like I've always said, one of my favorite movies is Alien. So it hits this like NASA punk is what they call it vibe. So it's not like hyper futuristic, but it's also not like Marauders where it's, you know, diesel punk. It's just hits this note that I really enjoy. Again, the exploration, you will see a lot of the same things. If you're not, I don't know, not to say not careful about it, but it does have a lot of content like bursting at the seams. It has, again, like I think in 200 hours, I still haven't seen it all. It's just that it's like spaced out. And so if you don't like jumping through space and then like landing on a planet to gather some resources and maybe like do a mission or two and then continuing on, you won't like the game. However, it's just, I don't know why like so many people hated it that much. Like I don't, that felt...
I think once again, so the problem with Bethesda being Bethesda is they always seem to come out with the new thing that people copy. Like first it was like first it was like Morrowind, and then Elder Scrolls. Oblivion Elder Scrolls was this natural expansion which took all the systems that Morrowind put in and made them better. It improved upon things, and then Skyrim came out and it was its own beast. It was its own thing. There was a bunch of new ways to do things. There's new systems. They revolutionized. And that's what Bethesda's been expected to do. And Fallout, 3 to Fallout New Vegas. Fallout 3 made the systems, Fallout New Vegas perfected them.
Right.
Like, it's this natural progression. However, Starfield didn't add anything. It just took a whole bunch of pre-established systems that worked and stuck them together without changing them or
I have to disagree, Zach. One thing I will note. The amount of role-playing is like the most we've had since like New Vegas. There are like dialogue options that matter. There's like a new persuasion system that is way better than any of the other. Like it's not just a straight speech check. You have to like see what you're saying to people for it to make sense. I don't know. Like there's a lot of stuff in it that is new and fresh. And like the role playing is great, the character building is great. It's like kind of a perk system like Skyrim had, but there's more of it, and it feels everything matters. Like, do you want to be better and actually better? Not just like slightly better at flying a ship, but really better at flying a ship. Get that, level that up. It's just, I don't know. And in the opposite of Baldur's Gate 3, I think this is why I'm so staunchly defending Starfield for a second. I can understand why like you wouldn't want to play it. I get you there. But what's really annoying to me, the way you see like Baldur's Gate circle jerked in like PC Gamer and circle jerked in Reddit and circle jerked on Twitter, it's just equal amounts of shitting on Starfield. So like for every 10 like love letters to Baldur's Gate, you get like 10 hate letters to Starfield for like PC Gamer is still writing hit pieces on Starfield all this time later. And it feels like slightly manufactured almost by a bunch of people who like either A, didn't play it. Like if you played it and you didn't like it, that's fine. However, I don't know, that's just kind of my take here. Is like I did have a lot of fun playing it, like genuine fun. I did have some gripes just like I had with Baldur's Gate 3. However, I do find it strange that like it's not a bad game, but everybody acts as if it's just like the worst garbage ever. And it's like, I don't know about that. Like I enjoyed this one at release way more than I did with Fallout 4, like 100 times over. Fallout 4 upon release was a massive disappointment for me. So Starfield, but again, Starfield had a lot of stuff I wanted. I liked the idea of Bethesda in space, and I'm excited for the future of it. But again, I do get the criticisms. I do just find it weird that it's like, for some reason, everybody just...
I almost feel like they should take on a more Star Trekian approach to it.
Well, I will say that's is kind of what they've done. That's so like No Man's Sky is way more about just straight exploration, right? There's not very many like what I would consider quest. Like there is a main quest line.
It's a find your fun adventure,
Right.
and it's you have to go find it, which is great for people who appreciate that. But
I don't like that. So like No Man's Sky, no matter, I know it's a good game now, and I'm objectively probably in a minority here. I don't like No Man's Sky even to this day. Like I've tried it. I own it. I was a release day buyer, so I got trolled hard. But I have tried it throughout the years. Starfield, on the other hand, is more quest driven, and all that exploration stuff is like tacked on, which is also a problem that I don't like. Which of course you've got the DLCs and mods, but I do feel like, especially with Fallout 4, Bethesda within the last like decade has definitely fallen into the whole like modders will make our game better. So like we give them a good platform. Starfield feels like a great launching platform for mods and DLC. Which, because it's got like, speaking to you like your Star Trek point, like it's got several major cities. They've each got their own like lore and they've got their own background, and they feel radically different from one another. But again, they're a little too safe with that. Like they don't want to make them stand out too much from each other, which is a shame, and that works to its detriment.
Now, if they had done something, and this would be a bit of a large step, and it's very much a Star Trek kind of copy, in a sense of like, make like a planet full of unique monsters great. When the only thing there is to do is shoot and gather, I don't care. Now, if you made like a unique culture and you had a system that had like 50 things that, 50 options for a thing, and then you had 4 different factors and it all rolled the random things, feel like I'm like a Star Trekian exploration person, that would be great. Also, there's no good Star Trek games, fight me.
Well, that's true. Well, the thing I will say to that point that you just made, in a positive light, is there is stuff like that. However, there's not enough stuff like that. I can think off the top of my head about 5 different planets that have these very moralistic, like Star Trek choices. Because like Star Trek is very moralistic. Like it's not so much about fighting, it's more about the morals of it. And
when do you and when don't you fight? When is it worth it? When is it okay to follow rules? When should you break those rules?
Well,
and then having someone who does nothing but break rules and someone who does nothing but follow rules, it's a good. There
is. I don't want to spoil this just for viewers' sake, but there is a quest exactly like that. There's a group of people on a planet. I won't go much into detail of this, but there's a conundrum that you figure out very early on. When you first meet a few people, you're like, wait, hold on one second. But then there's like 3 or 4 paths forward of like, who should you listen to and who should you choose? And it has nothing to do with combat. It's just a moral dilemma, and it's very well done. There's another one where there is a spaceship stuck out orbiting a planet. The people on the planet want you to destroy it, but you can actually dock with it and see if people are in there, and I won't spoil it, but again, they're very well done. It's just the problem is that stuff, after you've seen it, it kind of just goes away. Like after about 200 hours, well, actually probably around like the 125 hour mark, that content stops. And it's just, you need to like start a new playthrough, which I don't know. Because like, in my opinion, I think one of the reasons why I'm like 120 hours for a playthrough, like that's Baldurs Gate 3 playthrough for me. So I was kind of also basing it off that. Like I enjoyed 120 hours full of content that was good. The quest design was good. There were, again, some complaints. I'm not saying that. However, 120 hours for a Bethesda game that I enjoyed, that's why it made it here. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. I do not think, it does not win over Skyrim for me. And it might not even win, well, it might win over Fallout 4 for me. But again, I am more interested in the...
sir.
That's a very, well, I won't tell how many hours I have in Fallout 4 with mods because it's embarrassing, but I have a lot of hours in Fallout 4, and that's simply because I love modding it and just roaming around, and I get in the habit of doing that, kind of like Skyrim. But either way, I do think that Starfield is worth people's times. I just think you are right. I agree with the criticism, every criticism you've said. It needs something that it does better and that it innovated, and it just, like, again, spaceship building, okay, like, that's fine. It's there. The quest design is, like, pretty good. It's, like, got some great lore to it, but it's just, you know, it's okay. I will say I remember more quests from Starfield than I do Baldurs Gate, but again, because I think it is also, like, we've seen fantasy worlds, and we've seen a lot of space worlds too, but there's a lot of really good quest lines in there. However, you are 100% right. It didn't really innovate anything. If you want a decent, like, fun space exploration game to play with, like, traditional Bethesda guild quests, it's worth your time. However, if you're expecting, like, the next gen Bethesda thing, I don't think this is it. I think, if you want my opinion, they're probably saving something like that for Elder Scrolls 6, but at this point, I don't know. I don't even know what, like, Elder Scrolls, is it just going to be a reskin of Skyrim, which could be a problem. I think
that's why they've been putting it off for so long, is I don't know if they're waiting on technology to get to the point where they can, because I mean, I'll be real, this is a big topic and maybe a whole conversation by itself. Sure. AI needs to be in the games. AI.
All right, Zach. Well, I guess we'll wrap this up here. I think this was actually, despite any sort of criticisms about anything that we said today, this year was actually pretty good for games. I mean,
it was
in reality,
year for games. It wasn't a good year for AAA games. I will say that, because of everything we talked about, only one thing was a AAA game, and it was the thing that everyone's talked about, Baldur's Gate.
Well, that's what I was saying. I've got Going Medieval, Underrail, Sons of the Forest, Shadows of Doubt, Amnesia, Party Animals, Zomboid, Valheim, Aliens, Dark Descent, My Time at Sandrock, Wartales. All, like, the majority of my list.
None of these are AAA games.
It was a great time to just, like, sit back and enjoy some games, and that was good. And I'm glad that indie games are starting to, like, come about that aren't just, I felt like everything was going to cozy farm sims there for a couple years, and I was just like, or platformers, and I'm not really big into either of those. So I'm glad to see things like Underrail, Aliens, Dark Descent, you know, Wartales, stuff like that getting made. And I'm glad to get my hands on that. Of course, Zomboid, Valheim, stuff like that. Just, we need more of that. And I'm glad that, me and you and our friends are getting to experience that stuff, because that's absolutely excellent.
There's a greater variety of games going. This has been the great game variety. There's been some cozy games came out. There's been some, like, more interesting, I mean, once again, Zomboid's kind of newer in the sense of that's kind of, since the modders and the new game type came out, like, it's kind of become a new game. Like, there's been a lot of variety. Like,
well, it's just great to be able to be playing. Like, I was playing that detective game, Shadows of Doubt, and, like, you know, it was great. Alana came over and just, like, watched me play it for a while. And then, like, right before that, me and Sarah were playing a freaking co-op horror game set on an island. And then we're playing, you know, Party Animals. Like, it's been great to just play different games this year. That's been super fun, because I felt like there's nothing wrong, I still love the games we play, but it just felt like all of our games that we sunk a lot of hours into, Zomboid and Valheim, have been out for a while. The only one I could really see at some point maybe would be Sons of the Forest, but it's just not, it was more like something me and Sarah were just interested in, and I didn't want to drag everybody into it. So it's just like, I wish more games like Zomboid and Valheim were being made, but at the same time, then they wouldn't be special. So that's also the point. Like Zomboid, Valheim, stuff like that is special because you only get one of them a decade, it feels like. You know, Valheim's just a few years old, you know, and then you've got Zomboid, which is
it created a new genre. Like, I love the Return to Mordor, but it's a Valheim build system. Like, Valheim system, I'm sure it kind of existed beforehand, but, like, it really seemed to create, it feels like it opened up a new category of game, which
Valheim opened up a category of games which is like survival games that aren't annoying to play.
Exactly.
Either way, Zach, I'm gonna wrap this up here with the recording, but it was
enjoy the 45 gigs of space.
Yeah, it was a great year, my boys, and we'll talk to you later.